Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Rhonda.
When we're having an issue that we bring up to our spouse, we need to be aware of the blockades that we're experiencing as we're talking.
So, if we are self aware, then we're aware of what's going on inside. Am I escalating? Am I closing? Do I feel my spouse is escalating or closing? Because I can say, well, it seems like you're frustrated. Did I do something?
We need to be able, as a listener, to let our spouse know that when they presented something, hey, that would have come across better to me if you had not said this, or maybe if you'd said this, I could have received it better.
Or we could say something like, what I really need to hear from you right now is, and we can help our spouse along.
And then we're not really judging what our spouse is saying, but we're judging the way it was presented. So a better presentation can come across to us and make it easier for us to hear it.
Notice we're not judging the person. We're just kind of deciding, I don't have a problem with what you're saying, with the content, with the message, but I could offer some suggestions for how you can approach me differently. But we've got to be approachable, especially as the listener. If our spouse is going to open up and share their heart with us,
we're going to have to set aside our own agenda and be able to hear the heart of our spouse and what they're meaning to communicate to us.
We have to be able to set aside our own agenda so that we can connect with our spouse. We're not trying to make a perfect speaker here. We're just trying to be able to hear a heart, and we really only need to address the things that are going to shut this communication down, not every little thing that we didn't like.
And of course, we have to be honest and polite and kind as we are listening.
We don't want to be thinking about what am I going to say next. But I have to be able to pay attention to what my spouse is saying and what's important to my spouse.
Sometimes we can be so focused on what I'm going to say when my spouse stops talking that we aren't really fully engaged on hearing what our spouse is saying.
Those things are all important. They're valid. They need to be said, just not right now.
So if tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language or choice of words are so challenging to you that you can't hear the message, then you need to say something like, when you said that, I felt blank because of blank. And you could present it better by this.
So you can fill in those blanks based on what your experience is, but you're kind of just letting your spouse know, this is what I'm feeling right now, and this is why I'm feeling it. It's not really about you. Let's be fair about this. It's our own triggers, and our spouse may not realize we've got these triggers. So we're more making them aware without it becoming all about me, right? So it's more of a brief, hey, can we shift? Can we make an adjustment?
There's so many things that we can do as we're working through issues that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to how we're presenting and how we're hearing.
And speaker, you can work with the listener to present an issue in a way that is less likely to step on their emotional toes, to trigger them. But before coming to this conversation, you would want to have spent some time knowing these things, talking about what are the things that trigger you so that you can approach your spouse from a way that doesn't trigger them.
Sometimes we can be in a hurry and we want to present that issue and get this handled quickly, but sometimes we may need to take a week or two to let something set and think about how to come across well and prepare our spouse to be able to hear what we need to present.
It's okay to say, I think we need to set this aside for now and maybe work on the way we're interacting as we talk through these issues. Because if you haven't positioned yourself, and we have a lot of videos on positioning, but if you haven't positioned yourself well, you need to lay it down until you can accomplish that first.
Sometimes our own heart needs to have the right attitude before we're presenting the issue to our spouse. We need to make sure our heart's right.
And we have to let our spouse know, the listener, that we're not going to push or force this issue. And if you need to come back to it later, I'm able to lay this down. But we do need to decide we will come back to it later.
So when we have hindrances in our communication, we need to be aware of our own self and how that we might overcome the issues that we're facing in communication.
And so, if your behavior or lack of behavior has a negative effect on your spouse, you want to be able to make an adjustment that your spouse needs. Go for at least a neutral effect, so that you get off of having a negative impact.
1 Corinthians 7, verse 32 through 34 is a great passage that shares how that a married person cares for the things of the world, how they can please their spouse. And a married person is different from a single person because a single person can serve the Lord without distraction.
You know, in a marriage, God's plan for the married person is He allows for, there's a distraction even in relationship with Him. With the focus of pleasing the spouse, we do have to pay attention to the things that are going on in a natural thing like our marriage relationship, which really has a spiritual impact, but that's a whole nother message. But being able to pay attention, am I pleasing to my spouse? How can I improve and be more pleasing?
So you want to keep adjusting, make adjustments on and work on your communication and work on being a good speaker and a good listener. The more we improve in this area, the more we're going to be able to have a better outcome.